You are sitting in a room right now. You feel entirely secure. You are comfortable. Surrounded by invisible safety nets, you navigate a world designed to insulate you from the chaotic forces of nature. When a disaster approaches today, you do not have to guess. You get a push notification on your phone. It is shrill. It is demanding. Delivering real-time meteorological data directly to your palm, this tiny device eliminates the ancient necessity of reading the wind. You open a brightly colored app. You look at a digitized radar grid. You watch the storm move. Knowing there are government agencies monitoring the sky with orbital satellites, you feel a deep sense of absolute control. You have warning sirens. You have government agencies. You have concrete bunkers. You have built a fortress out of data. Sitting inside this digital fortress, you sleep soundly because you believe the technological system is always awake and watching over you. Now, take a breath. Strip it all away. Delete the data. Smash the servers. Erasing the satellites orbiting silently above your head, you must transport your mind back to the raw vulnerability of the ancient world. Turn off the grid. Silence the sirens. You are standing in an open river valley. Existing deep within the late Pleistocene epoch, you find yourself completely disconnected from the technological womb of modern civilization. It is a quiet afternoon. The air is cool. The grass is tall. There is no warning. Standing beneath the vast expanse of a truly wild sky, you are suddenly exposed to the terrifying whims of an untamed universe. Suddenly, a second sun appears. The light is blinding. It is absolute. Tearing through the atmosphere at an incomprehensible velocity, the celestial intruder violently disrupts the peaceful silence of the prehistoric landscape. The air turns to plasma. A shockwave flattens the forest. The ground liquefies. The atmosphere burns. Incinerating everything within a radius of hundreds of miles, a wall of unimaginable heat peels the bark straight from the trees. You do not have a weather app. You do not have a basement. You have nowhere to hide. What do? Faced with the immediate annihilation of your entire known reality, you are forced to rely on the deepest instincts buried in your DNA. I know exactly what you are thinking. You are thinking this is just a movie scene. You are picturing a Hollywood spectacle. Watching this from the comfortable distance of the 21st century, you assume this is merely an entertaining work of science fiction. But pull yourself out of that velvet seat. Stop watching the screen. We need to talk about them. Leaving the modern viewer behind entirely, we must examine the brutal reality of the people who actually lived through the apocalypse. For 99% of human history, the sky was not a mapped grid. It was a ceiling. It was terrifying. It was unpredictable. Unmonitored by space agencies and men in white lab coats, the vast expanse above was a realm of profound and constant danger. We look at meteor strikes as rare anomalies today. We treat them like cosmic lottery tickets. We hope we never scratch them. But for our hunter-gatherer ancestors, these violent cataclysms were simply part of the natural rhythm of the turning Earth. They lived intimately with a hostile planet. The Earth was actively trying to kill them. They did not have the luxury of panic. Panic is a modern disease. Panic is a dangerous byproduct of feeling like you deserve safety and having that fragile expectation violently violated by reality. They had no such illusion. They never expected to be safe. They only had the raw mechanics of survival. Forged in the blood of countless generations, their resilience was constantly tested by fire and endlessly refined by the creeping ice. But here is the dirty secret about surviving the end of the world. How do you outrun a cosmic shotgun blast? You do not. You cannot outrun a rock traveling at 50,000 miles an hour. Realizing that resistance to the kinetic force of the cosmos is entirely futile, you simply must adapt to the falling ashes. Look down at the dirt beneath your feet. Treat the impact site like an ancient crime scene. We are talking about the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. This cataclysm happened roughly 12,800 years ago. Geologists and archaeologists do not just guess about these historical tragedies over a casual cup of coffee in a university lounge. They use forensic precision to find the murder weapon. They found it buried deep in the crust. It is a layer of soil, wrapping around the entire northern hemisphere. This thin ribbon of death serves as a permanent geological record of a global catastrophe. Inside this dark mat, they found the evidence: nanodiamonds, iridium, melt glass. High-temperature magnetic spherules scatter the ancient soil, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that something massive detonated in the sky. These are not things formed by a gentle summer forest fire. These are the undeniable fingerprints of a fiery apocalypse, a moment when the sky literally fell. It shattered the continent, burning the atmosphere to a crisp. The sheer thermal radiation wiped out entire ecosystems in the blink of a prehistoric eye. So, how did they survive the immediate aftermath? They did not wait for a rescue helicopter. They did not sit on the roof. They executed a massive geographical relocation. Realizing that their ancestral hunting grounds were reduced to toxic ash, they gathered their remaining families and simply walked away. They shifted their entire migration routes. They moved away from the blast radius. They marched away from the catastrophic climate cooling. Plunging the planet into a sudden and brutal thousand-year winter, the atmospheric dust blocked out the vital warmth of the sun. The oceans choked on glacial meltwater. The mighty megafauna died. The mammoths fell in the freezing mud, and our ancestors kept walking. Driven by a primal imperative to endure the harshest conditions imaginable, they pushed their bodies past the absolute limits of human endurance. A step, another step, forward, always forward. Refusing to surrender to the freezing temperatures and the dying light, they marched across continents to find a new home. They moved, they adapted, they survived. Do not be foolish enough to think they just forgot about it. How do you warn your great-grandchildren about a falling star? You do not have a hard drive. You do not have a textbook. Lacking any form of written language or digital storage, they faced the seemingly impossible task of archiving a planetary apocalypse. They coded the trauma directly into their oral tradition. A kinetic bombardment from deep space is a difficult concept to explain. You cannot teach astrophysics to a child holding a wooden spear. Understanding that stories outlive individuals, they translated the complex astrophysics into something their descendants would remember forever. They told stories. Stories of angry fire deities, tales of massive sky dragons, myths of boiling oceans. These were not just fairy tales invented to entertain weary travelers around a glowing campfire in the middle of the night. This was a psychological survival tool. It was a sophisticated warning beacon, a message passed down through millennia. Serving as an ancient alarm system for future generations, these myths were a desperate plea to keep their eyes on the stars. A way to say, look up, be ready, the sky can burn. It has happened before. Knowing the cyclical nature of cosmic violence, they wanted to ensure humanity would never be caught completely off guard again. It will happen again. But a massive turning point eventually arrived. The villain of this story was not a monster from space. It was a simple seed. It was entirely unassuming. Planted in the fertile soil of the river valleys, this tiny grain of wheat would ultimately become the architect of our entrapment. Imagine packing up a modern city to escape a disaster today. You cannot do it, can you? You cannot put a skyscraper in a backpack. You cannot roll up a concrete highway. Expecting to relocate millions of people and thousands of tons of steel before a sudden impact is an absolute logistical impossibility. When our ancestors decided to plant seeds in the ground, everything shifted. The agricultural revolution was born. We stopped walking. We built permanent structures. Drawing imaginary lines on the earth and calling them sovereign borders, we fundamentally altered our evolutionary relationship with the natural environment. We used heavy stone. We used thick mud. We built a beautiful illusion of permanent infrastructure. We thought we were building utopia, constructing massive walls to keep out the wild animals and the wandering tribes. We were actually building our very own cage. We live our lives according to a rigid, predictable script, much like a Bo-Cook Tiu Chorn, master template.ux, believing that our modern systems will always protect us. In doing so, they lost their greatest evolutionary advantage. They traded extreme, fluid mobility for full bellies. They wanted a warm hearth. Before the sprawling agricultural farms dominated the landscape, humanity was a highly adaptable and constantly moving target. The cosmos could fire a bullet, but we were never in the same place twice. We were shadows slipping through the valleys. The moment we settled down to watch the wheat grow, we stopped moving. Committing our entire existence to the annual harvest cycles, we pinned ourselves to the map and became a stationary target. We pinned ourselves to the map. We became a stationary target. Trapping ourselves right in the absolute center of the blast zone, we willingly surrendered our ability to outrun the wrath of the cosmos. We traded the horizon for a fence. Now look at us. Look at what we have become. We traded the boundless freedom to escape for a stationary zip code. We traded the open horizon for a fenced-in backyard. Surrounding ourselves with the comforts of modern consumerism, we deliberately severed the ancient, nomadic instincts that kept our species alive. We domesticated ourselves. We have built magnificent civilizations. We have launched incredible telescopes. These machines can peer into the edge of time, operating with astonishing precision. These technological marvels allow us to predict a catastrophic meteor strike down to the exact second. We calculate its trajectory, we measure its mass, we analyze its velocity. Armed with incredibly sophisticated algorithms that scan the darkness 24 hours a day, we know exactly when the world will end. We have the data. But if one actually hits, if that alarm finally sounds, our sprawling infrastructure guarantees we have absolutely nowhere to run. Trapped within the rigid confines of our modern metropolitan areas, millions of citizens would find themselves hopelessly gridlocked on the highways. We are anchored to our concrete driveways. We are chained to our mortgages. We traded our raw resilience for the fragile illusion of convenience. Paralyzed by the sheer weight of our own magnificent creations, we find ourselves entirely incapable of executing the most basic survival instinct. When the sky falls again, we will face a terrifying reality. The air will turn to fire, the ground will shatter. Staring at the push notifications illuminating our useless digital screens, we will finally realize that we simply forgot how to walk away.